So here we have two of possibly the most insufferable people to ever grace our television screens in the UK. One is Brian May, who's a washed-up old pop star, and the other is Chris Packham, who's a not-so-washed-up children's TV presenter, who's now given undue prominence to espouse his frankly partisan views on field sports on the BBC, which is obviously licence fee payers pay for. So, yeah, we'll come back to that anyway. But regardless, here they are on the Badger Cull. Let's hear what they've got to say for themselves.
Unfortunately, a lot of the farming community has been led into this idea that badgers are to blame and we just take care of the badger population and everything will be all right. But it's actually, sadly, nothing close to the truth. The more evidence comes in, the more it seems absolutely certain that the spread of TB is all about the herd. It's all about infection and reinfection within the herd of cows.
The more it seems absolutely certain, apparently. This is the sort of logic that you're getting from people like Brian May. And it's quite weird, really. Because, yeah, sure, there is a problem with reinfection within the herd. You know, cows that are not detected are infecting other cows. Absolutely. But that's in a controlled environment. There's something that we can do about that. Or at least there's an element of things that we can do about that. But what we can't do anything about is the fact that we've got badgers running around, which have got TB, which are, not coming in direct contact with cattle because they don't need to, because they're peeing, they're vomiting, they're espousing all of the symptoms of tuberculosis in the environment where the cows are, and the cows pick it up. It's really not rocket science.
Inefficient skin test. This is the way they do it. You go to a herd, and this is traumatic for farmers and traumatic for the animals as well. They go there and they inject the animals and they see what size lump comes up in them. It's called the skin test. And the skin test is supposed to reveal which animals are infectious at that time, which animals have the TB in their blood. Unfortunately, it's incredibly inefficient and inaccurate.
The skin test is it's about, according to DEFRA, it has about a 50% success rate. Absolutely. And this kind of compounds the problem, doesn't it? Because it's the only test that we've got, short of taking blood from each cow and sending it off for analysis, waiting for a few months till it comes back. In the meantime, we've got cows infecting each other and so on and so forth. This is the science that we have. This is what we're dealing with, Brian. So what? What do you want us to do? Literally, what do you want us to do? What is the alternative? I mean, do you think you know better than DEFRA? Do you think you know better than Imperial College London? Do you think you know better than the National Veterinary Association? I mean, what would you suggest? What techniques have you developed, Brian May, that's more efficient than the skin test?
That even Ian Boyd, who's the government's chief advisor, says badgers are probably responsible for, less than 6% of the cases of transference. That tells you something. The other 94% is somewhere else. And what needs to be done is better testing in the herd, better movement controls, and actually take all the infected animals out of the herd, and then you have a chance of ridding yourself of this disease.
See, this is what I don't understand about Brian May, because on one hand, he's literally just said that the way of testing for bovine TB isn't very efficient and isn't very good. And now he's saying that we've only got 6% of infections in cattle are coming from badgers. But yet, according to Imperial College London, that equates to 50% of all infections of bovine TB, because the localised infections from badgers mean that it spreads to 50% of all that are infected. And the other 50%, I guess, are coming from other farms, people who are not cleaning their wellies properly, because they often, they have exclusion zones and they disinfect their wellies, they disinfect vehicles, that sort of thing. It is a major problem. And of course, nobody's saying that badgers are the only problem. But what it comes down to is, like I said before, is the fact that we can control farming, can't we? We can segregate animals, we can diagnose them as best we can and have them put down. We can, like I said, have means of disinfecting your wellies, disinfecting vehicles as they come from other farms. We can control all of that. But what we can't control is badgers, unless, of course, we shoot them. Because if we shoot them and we cull them, we can, restrict that as a source of infection, because there's no doubt that that's where the source of the infection is, because it's the only variable in this equation. I mean, if this is a lab test, okay, and we had Brian May's perfect example of how to run farming in the UK, God knows what that would look like. But if we did, and we had all these farms segregated, we had really, really reliable ways of checking infections on cows, we had ways of segregating farms where there was infections, and it was all 100% perfect, then there would still be the variable of badgers. I mean, effectively what he's doing, he's actually making an argument for culling more badgers, because it's the only thing that we can't control. It's the one wild thing in the environment. And why don't you care about these badgers, Brian? What's the problem here? You say you like badgers. So why on earth would you want a badger dying slowly of TB? Why wouldn't you want it shot? I just don't understand this mentality at all, or even remotely where he's coming from. He's offering no solutions at all.
And if we know this, and we know that the science doesn't stack up, and we know that the badgers that are being culled inhumanely in some cases, and we know that it's enormously expensive, why is it going on?
So yeah, we've got Chris Packham finally piping up with his 2 pence worth. Sorry, Chris, no, we don't know that the science doesn't add up. The science very much does add up. In localised infections, 6% of cattle are infected by badgers. That then equates to spreading throughout the herd and making a grand total of 50% of all infections within that herd are caused indirectly by badgers. The other 50% will be coming from other farms. Where did those other farms get the infection from? You guessed it, badgers. It's the only variable in this equation, isn't it? We could control everything else. We could, if tomorrow we killed all of the cattle, disinfected everything and started from scratch, we would get TB again. And where would we get it from? Badgers. That's where we would get it from. So what the hell is going on here? And then saying that it's inhumane? I'm sorry, a marksman with a 30 caliber rifle at 100 yards or less is more than capable of humanely taking a badger. But let's start the argument where it starts here. We have overprotected badgers to the tune of meaning that we have got nearly wiped out our native hedgehog population. Partridge has long since been wiped out. Lapwings are on their way to being wiped out. And why? Because badgers have no natural predators. It's as if these people live in some sort of fairyland where they think that there's like a jungle out there. They sort of ignore all the agriculture they see around them, the human impact on the environment that we've created, which we need to do because we need to feed ourselves. That means that we have a responsibility to manage the countryside. And because of pillocks like him, we've overprotected this animal, and it's now coming to it, causing a huge problem. Not just TB, as I said, lots of other things as well. So what do we need to do about this? Well, yeah, the one point he does make is that it's hugely expensive for the government to pay people to shoot them. So what we need to do is put them on the general licence and should be able to shoot them for sport. That's the solution. I personally want to try badger ham. Back in the 60s, badger ham was a very popular, pub snack. It was on every bar of every pub, pretty much. Why not? Why can't we shoot them? So yeah, I mean, the one other thing to say here, which really irks me about this, more than anything else, is Chris Packham gets to spread this misinformation, this ridiculous arguments from emotion to the general public on the BBC, the organisation that's funded through our licence fee that we all have to pay for, of threat of being put in prison if we don't. And this guy's been given a voice. Why isn't Ofcom getting him sacked? There's already petitions out there to get him knocked off the BBC because he frankly shouldn't be there. Anyway, that's me. I'm out.